Hare Krishna. Okay. Hare Krishna. So I've been told we sing the song Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. Yeah? Okay. And are you practiced to just sing first the first line and then everybody repeats like that? Okay. I try my best. A prayer to the lotus feet of Sri Gauranga from Pratana by Sri Narottam Das Thakur. But we can't, there's no translation, only a purport, so that's a bit too long to read. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro More Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro More Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Beara Patita Tava Avatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Beara Ha ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bolokana Koro Ami Borodukhi Ha ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bolokana Koro Borodukhi Daya Koro Sitapati Advaita Goshai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai Daya Koro Sitapati Advaita Goshai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai Ha ha Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunata Bhatta Juga Shri Jiva Prabhu Lokanata Ha Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Bhatta Juga Shri Jiva Nata Daya Koro Shriya Jaya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangamage Narottama Dasa Daya Koro Shriya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangamage Narottama Dasa Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro More Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro More Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please be merciful to me, because who can be more merciful than your Lordship within these three worlds? So we're always begging for mercy. And Srila Narottam Das Thakur is writing a beautiful bhajan in the mood of separation of his dear Lord, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. That actually this mood of separation is the embodiment of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, definitely. However, he appeared especially for the fallen souls, for the benefit of the fallen souls of Kali Yuga, as an acharya, as a devotee. And there's his internal reason and his external reason. His external reason was that the time to propagate the Sankirtan movement had come and to answer the call of his dear devotee Advaita Acharya. And his internal reason was because even Krishna couldn't fathom the love of Srimati Radharani for him. He wanted to understand her love. What is the beauty she sees in me? What is the happiness that she feels when she has that loving relationship with me? What is her love for me? Krishna himself wanted to experience that and also repay his debt to Srimati Radharani and the gopis, who expressed the highest limit of bhav or prema, love for Krishna. So we are very fortunate to be here in the presence of Sri Sri Gaura-Nitai. And we have Gaura-Nitai, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and then wonderfully on the next altar you have Lord Jagannath, Baladev and Lady Subhadra. So Lord Chaitanya, of course, is most intimately connected with Lord Jagannath. And like when after he took sannyas, on the request of his mother, he moved to Jagannath Puri. And on his arrival, when he first entered the temple of Lord Jagannath, he was just in so much ecstasy and happiness to see Lord Jagannath, so much so that he even climbed onto the altar to embrace the Lord. Because we can understand at that moment, he didn't see Lord Jagannath like we are seeing here. He saw Lord Shamsundar's form and he wanted to embrace, because he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Radharani's only one emotion at all times is to be with her Lord, Sham. And then the Pandas, of course, not understanding what was happening, wanted to beat him. However, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came and he could recognize, even so he was a Mayavadi philosopher, he could recognize the exalted symptoms on the body of this young sannyasi, and he stopped them from beating him and asked them to bring them to his home. And in that way, so many pastimes developed. So I felt inspired to give this little introduction to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm honored to be here. My name is Anuradha. I joined this movement in 1979 in Vrindavan. And the first time I came to this beautiful Surik temple was about 35 years ago. A long time back. I was a young mother then. And because I was born in Germany, my parents don't live so far from here. So I just came from India, from Vrindavan, and it was my parents' 60th wedding anniversary. So my brother gave me a ticket, so I was able to come. And of course I had to take the opportunity to come and visit this beautiful Surik temple and the devotees. So thank you so much for having me here. And also, I wanted to take the opportunity, Krishna Prema Rupa is not here, Damodar Prasad Prabhu is not here, but I sincerely thank not just the leading devotees, but all the devotees that are here for staunchly pursuing this path of Krishna consciousness and continuing with all of your preaching endeavors here in the Western world. I've been a little bit spoiled in the sense that the last 10 years mostly I've been in Vrindavan, and a little bit different mood there, different focus. And because of Corona and everything, traveling became very difficult. And so I'm honored to be here today. I haven't officially ever given a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita because it's a very elevated subject matter. It's very confidential. We have Bhagavad Gita that gives us Lord Krishna in a conversation to Arjuna on the battlefield, gave the complete and perfect presentation of Krishna conscious philosophy, but it's in seed form, it's elementary. And then Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, is a very progressive scripture in detail, explaining the futility of material life and how to develop love for God. However, Chaitanya Charitamrita takes us to a more higher level wherein in depth, not just in a theoretical way, but the various rasas or mellows of love for God is detailed, in detail described. So I've been asked to speak on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22, text 63. It's entitled The Process of Devotional Service, which is a beautiful subject matter, and any serious and sincere devotee must study these topics. In this particular chapter, Lord Chaitanya specifically gives instructions to his disciple Sanatana Goswami, who is considered the senior disciple of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And when you're reading the chapter, you can see actually the verses are all given by Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada so kindly presented to us in his Nectar of Devotion. And in the Nectar of Devotion, of course, many reasons are given why this Nectar of Devotion is presented. But the main reason, Srila Prabhupada states, so that the devotees can become solidly situated in Krishna consciousness. So that's why the process of devotional service. So we are following a process, a sadhana, whereby no matter who we are, that was said a few verses back, I think, was explained that no matter who you are, no matter where you've come from, no matter what you've been doing, if you come to this point of accepting this process of devotional service, you are given this unique opportunity to develop love of God. And developing love of God means not just liberation. So we're not just aiming for liberation in the material world. We're aiming to achieve love of God, which means being situated again in our own individual, unique service to Krishna, which we have eternally. It's situated within our heart, this love of God, but it's lying dormant. We have forgotten. And now the opportunity is given to awaken that. So I read the verse, which is actually from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 31, Text 14. Yatataro mula nishechanena tripyanti tatskanda bujo pashaka pranopaharachchaya tendriyanam tataiva savahanam ajutechya. I was very happy when Prabhu presented me with this verse, because it's one of my favorite verses actually. It's a verse that has been of nourishment and subsistence for me in my devotional life. We all have some key verses that we feel to get comfort and support from. So I'm happy that this verse happened to come up. By pouring water on the root of a tree, one automatically satisfies the trunk, branches and twigs. Similarly, by supplying food to the stomach, where it nourishes the life air, one satisfies all the senses. In the same way, by worshipping Krishna and rendering him service, one automatically satisfies all the demigods. Om Agnati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishyakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Brindavanishvare Vrishabhanu Sade Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnaveno Unamaha Namo Mahavananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goradvishe Namo Namaha. O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. So this was the prayer, of course, of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan at their first meeting. This is the verse I was referring to before. Chiradatam nitya gupta vitam swaprema namamritam adjudara apamaram yovitatara gora krishno janebhyastam aham prapadye. The most munificent Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Gora Krishna, distributed to everyone, even the lowest of men, his own confidential treasury in the form of the nectar of love of himself and the holy name. This was never given to the people at any time before. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Prabhu, I decided that I will just speak on text 63 because the next topic kind of starts with text 64 and it goes a few verses explaining about Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam, Adhikari. It's kind of a whole nother topic, so I decided to just focus on that. Usually I like to spend more time preparing the classes, so in advance I beg my forgiveness for my shortcomings, and I'll just spontaneously, I try my best. So in order to speak a little bit on text 63, I'm taking help first of text 62, wherein it is said, Shraddha is confident, firm faith, that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Such faith is favorable to the discharge of devotional service. So if we want to take up this process of devotional service, the process of devotional service begins with Shraddha. What means Shraddha? Confident, firm faith. That if I engage in this process, I don't need to do anything else. So that needs explanation, of course. What does it mean? And what does it mean if I engage in rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, automatically all subsidiary activities are performed. So we need to explain that. And then, of course, how is it that just by focusing on Krishna, by pouring water on the root, it means we're serving Krishna. We're only serving Krishna. Then everything automatically in his creation is satisfied. And the analogy is given just like if I give food to the stomach, the whole body is nourished. Prabhupada says you can't give food through the eye or through the ear. It won't work. You need to put food in the stomach and then the whole body will be healthy. So we are encouraged here to understand that really our focus in our life should be to just worship Krishna and render service to him. Of course here Narada Muni is speaking to the Prajetas and he is specifically instructing, don't worry about demigod worship. So faith, we need to have faith in Krishna, that he is the Supreme Person. He is the sanctioning authority for everything that happens in His creation. He created it. He's the source of it. He gives intelligence. He says in Bhagavad Gita, I'm situated in everyone's heart. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. The conditioned soul thinks I'm the doer. Ahankara, vimudatma, right? Katham iti manyate. He thinks I'm the doer of my life. And which causes him unlimited problems and suffering, actually, this attitude. Because we can understand from our scriptures that not even a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Lord. So we learned here that all responsibilities are automatically taken care of by Krishna himself. So does that mean, like, am I responsible for anything? Do any responsibilities come to me? I just sit around, do nothing? Do I make any plans? Do I take decisions? How do I plan? How do I make decisions? What am I responsible? How am I responsible? How things will get done? You know, that's the usual argument of non-devotees, isn't it? But I remember seeing a reporter asking Prabhupada, but if all of the world became Hare Krishna devotees, what will happen? Oh, it will be a very wonderful place, Prabhupada is saying. Everybody will be so happy. He said there will no longer be any hippies. At that time, I think it was in some interview in the airport. So, initially, everything begins with Shraddha. So we hear a verse like this, that just by pouring water on the root of the tree, one automatically satisfies Krishna and all of his creation. So that's comforting. If you're an inquisitive soul coming from the material sphere, which is very bewildering, then it gives you immediately a focus. Oh, okay, this human form of life is rarely achieved. The goal of this human life is to learn how to serve Krishna, how to focus on Krishna. So I just do that. I just focus on how to serve Krishna. And if I do that, if I have that faith that Krishna is the Supreme Person and I have an eternal loving relationship with Him, and He wants me to come home back to Godhead and engage in my eternal service, He will give me all help and guidance and support. And if we follow this process as given by Sanatana Goswami, by Rupa Goswami, by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, by our acharyas, by our sadhus and gurus, if we follow it correctly, that means having this full faith, then Krishna will take full responsibility because we are becoming His ward. We are in His charge, like that. So how do I make plans? How do I live my life now? How do I make decisions? How to make choices? So the next step then is to understand, yes, Krishna has given all of us, all the living entities, a minute amount of independence. We have a minute will where we can make choices and decisions. We have consciousness, Chaitana. Just like this desk here, I can hit it, I can kick it, there won't be a response because there's no consciousness. It's just matter, it's dull matter. But when consciousness, when the spirit spark gets added to matter, like in the plants, in animals, in insects, in trees, in human beings, then there's the presence of consciousness. The presence of consciousness means I have a choice. This table here has no choice. Can't make any decisions, can't make any plans. If it gets used here for Bhagavatam, wonderful. If it gets thrown in the fire, he can't protest. But I can make a choice. I have an independent will. So the question is how to properly use this independent will. And here we are instructed and encouraged again and again. The only choice we have is to decide, yes, I understand. I've been trying to enjoy in this material world separately from the Lord, and it's only given me birth after birth and unlimited sufferings. Now I understand how foolish that was. Actually, I'm the servant of Krishna, and all of my decisions and plans and choices should be based on how to come closer to the Lord. That is the proper use, like that. And sometimes even if we are confused or we are not sure, that's why we have the guidance of sadhu, shastra, and guru. And also Krishna is always within our heart. We might forget Krishna, but Krishna's never forgotten us. We've gone through 8,400,000 species of life, trying in so many ways to enjoy the senses, not thinking of Krishna, not desiring even to engage in his service, but Krishna's come along every step of the way, just waiting for when we turn to him. In text 62 in the purport, Prabhupada says the human goal is detachment from material life and to learn how to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Now, what detachment, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, doesn't mean we have to become renounced. We can't renounce something that didn't belong to us in the first place. Prabhupada gives the example, it's like if a person walks into a bank. What's the biggest bank here? Zurich Bank or something like that? Yeah, Swiss Bank, like that. If I walk in there tomorrow and say, I want to speak to the bank manager. Okay, maybe you're lucky I might meet him. And I say, I renounce this bank. Right? They'll probably lock me up somewhere. They sent me back to Germany. Like that. So similarly, this whole material world belongs to whom? Belongs to Krishna. So there's nothing for us to renounce in that sense. It never belonged to you in the first place. It's just a matter of understanding, oh, this is Krishna's property. I have to use it for his service, loving service. And that's how we are now basing our plans and our choices and our decisions, you see. So, how then the next question, the big question is, okay, we're not focusing on renunciation. We're focusing on satisfying the senses of the Lord. Now, Krishna is Atmarama, Atmakama, Aptakama. He doesn't need anything from us. What do you give to somebody that has everything? You see? But there's the one thing that Krishna is very greedy for, very much wants. What is that? Our loving relationship with him. He can't get enough of it. He wants everyone, and that's why we're doing this preaching. That's the whole purpose of this Nam Sankirtan movement, is to somehow or other, come on, Krishna wants to have a loving relationship with you. Come and join, chant Hare Krishna, learn how to love Krishna. That is the mood of Srimati Radharani. That's the mood of Lord Chaitanya, you see. That's why in Nectar of Devotion, in the preface, in Nectar of Instruction, in the preface, Srila Prabhupada immediately points us to the fact that the mission of Lord Chaitanya is to give everyone in this dreadful age of Kali Yuga the opportunity to have the same love for Krishna, just like the gopis in Vrindavan. The most fallen are given the highest, like that. So basically this chapter 22 of Madhya Lila, amongst other chapters, here Lord Chaitanya is specifically giving the process of devotional service, explaining it to Sanatana Goswami. He explains the truth of the living entity, that the first step to understand is that we are Krishna Das. For so many lifetimes we've been Maya Das, Maya Dasi. I have to speak for myself. Maya Dasi, trying to enjoy in the material world. Now finally, by Prabhupada's grace, we've come to understand, actually, hold on, no, my eternal, truthful Dharma, my Sanatan Dharma, my Jaiva Dharma, is to be a servant of Krishna. And when we come to understand that, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching in the 5th verse of Shikshastakam, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, then, I'm not Maya Dasi, I'm Krishna Dasi. Then we can pray to the Lord, please, again, accept me in your service. I'm Kinkariya. I'm just a fallen soul. Let me just be a speck of dust at your lotus feet. Then Lord Chaitanya is explaining, of course, the super excellence of devotional service. It's called the process of devotional service, or bhakti. Many other processes are there, sadhanas are there. You can engage in karma yoga, jnana yoga, or mystic yoga. Different processes are given, sadhanas. There's some very renounced and some very strict followers of some very austere paths. However, just like we're learning, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, Kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatyanyata. 3 times this nastyeva is being said. No, we don't follow the path of karma, we don't follow the path of jnana or yoga. We just want to engage in Harinam, which is pure bhakti, pure devotion to the Lord. Because Prabhupada explains, we understand karma and jnana really don't have any meaning on their own. They're just mundane activities, fruitive activity and mental speculation, mystic yoga. They don't have any spiritual potency on their own. They only become meaningful if bhakti is added to it. However, bhakti is not dependent on karma and jnana or yoga. Only bhakti can bring bhakti, and bhakti comes from the spiritual world brought to us here by Guru and Gauranga. And Prabhupada then explains, as soon as you take up this process of devotional service, success is guaranteed. And even if there's some mishap or some agitation or a mistake, Krishna will help you. Just like a mother, we have children. The children, they're free to do and play and run, and they're completely carefree because they know mother is there, mother will take care. They don't have to worry for anything. So similarly, if we sincerely, with a simple heart, take up this process, Krishna definitely will take care. And if something happens, he will make the adjustment. He will help. And for that all to be possible, then it's explained how we need the mercy of the pure devotee, the sadhu. We had a beautiful ceremony yesterday evening, glorifying sadhu. So, because they're most dear, they're dear devotees to Krishna. And Krishna's given this system that we need to prove ourselves. We need to, show that we're sincere, that we're for real. And that via medium is given because it's not possible to directly approach Krishna. It's not possible like that. So then later on, and please you read this chapter, it's really so instructive. You have to read it very carefully because one word or one sentence has so many meanings. Then it is explained what are the symptoms of a pure devotee. And here, of course, it specifically explains pure devotees in Vrindavan, in Braj, which are called Ragatmika. The Ragatmika devotees, they're not just only eager or they have some attraction for Krishna. They have a very deep attachment, a very deep, loving, spontaneous attachment to Krishna. And then somebody who follows in the footsteps of these Ragatmika devotees is called a Raganuga Bhakta, or somebody who is following in the footsteps, trying to imbibe the mood of these eternal Nityasiddha devotees in Vrindavan. So we need to be educated in that. We need to be guided like that. So back to text 63. So we understand in Bhagavad Gita how Krishna is the source of all material and spiritual worlds. He says that in the first seed sloka in Bhagavad Gita, Aham savasya prabhavo mata savam pavartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Here the word bhava is there, so this surrender to Krishna is dependent on love. We have to go past the theoretical understanding that, okay, there's God, I'm His servant, and I just routinely, out of obligation, out of duty, do my services. We need to be able to move beyond that and come to this point of love and affection for Krishna. So here, I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So it's not just karma, engaging your body, your senses in activities of devotion, or using your intelligence, to study, which of course is all very important. However, it must come to this point where you're able to worship Krishna with all your heart. Like that. So the goal of all auspicious activities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada explains. I went to the Bhagavatam, of course, and checked on this verse, and in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada explains these things. So that the goal of all auspicious activities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Auspicious, of course, auspicious activity means that activity which helps you to develop this love for Krishna. Any activity that further entangles you in this material world is inauspicious. And then Prabhupada explains how the living entity is always Prakriti. He's never Purusha. So we're Krishna's energy. We're the Tatastha Shakti of the Lord. So we belong to Krishna. We are always in a position of servitude. As long as we are denying that servitude, we're going to suffer. We're going to be in bewilderment. We're going to end up in frustration and disappointment. As soon as we can understand, all right, I accept, I have this faith, I have this trust. I feel another word for faith needs to be trust, this complete trust. Trust is a little bit, faith oftentimes gets, put together with believe. But actually it's a matter of trust. And it's difficult because in the material world, for all of us, we've had experiences where our trust was broken. Our heart was broken. We put our emotion, particularly in a relationship, and somehow or other our trust was disappointed. So then now we are told, oh, Krishna is the Supreme Person, you just trust, just give Him service, everything will be okay. But to develop that trust, to have real, to be able to give our heart to Krishna, that requires this process. It requires good association. Prabhupada says it's impossible in the association of non-devotees, or those that are womanizers, he uses that word, meaning those who are still too much attached to sensual gratification. So this association with devotees who have developed trust and faith in Krishna. And how have they developed trust? By experience. Jai Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra, Jai Shri Shri Gaunitai. So this trust is not blind faith. This trust comes, oh yes, I've chanted my rounds, I've engaged in service, I've been with devotees, I've eaten prasadam, and there's a reciprocation. Because that loving relationship is a two-way system. Relationship means always two. So if I come forward to engage in a loving relationship with Krishna, He also immediately reciprocates. So in my heart, I develop this trust. Just like with Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was in a great, great dilemma. Unbelievable dilemma. He was faced with the action of having to kill his family, his grandfather, his friends, his uncles, his fathers. Unbelievable dilemma, isn't it? Unimaginable, actually. And in that conversation on the battlefield, he had so many doubts. He loved Krishna, was his dearest friend, but he had doubts. So we also have doubts because of bad experience or maybe lack of sukriti, whatever. So we need to put ourselves in an environment just like Arjuna needed to hear from Krishna himself. And Krishna is speaking through Arjuna for all of mankind. So we need to take up this process slowly, slowly, follow the instructions, apply it, and feel it in our heart. Let it act, let it move in our heart. And of course, that's a whole nother big topic that we're encouraged to speak, to chant the holy name, so that we can hear. Everything begins with hearing. The holy name then enters the ear, again moves in the heart, and purifies and pacifies. Our heart needs pacification. It's all right, it's okay, like that. So the original hearing has to come from the pure devotee because he speaks with pure love. There's no motivation. We feel frightened or afraid because we've been cheated or wrongly dealt by. So that's why we need to hear from somebody who has pure love, because he has no material motivation. So Prabhupada explains this is the duty, this is actually the duty of the human being in this human life, is to understand this truth, this jiva tattva. Like that, or like Krishna himself says here in chapter 10, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding. We make the effort to serve with love, and Krishna reciprocates equally. He will give the understanding by which they can come to me. So whatever happens in our life, we can trust that Krishna will be there. He always has been there. And he will help us. Why not? Isn't it? Any teacher, any parent wants the students, the children to be successful. So our Guru Janas, Sri Gauranitai, Srila Prabhupada, our Gurudevs want us to be successful on this path of Krishna consciousness. So, Prabhupada also explains that all other philanthropic work, people want to do good in the world. That's natural to the soul. The soul by nature wants to serve. It's very natural. It's just like sugar is sweet, the soul wants to serve. Water is liquid, like that. It's the Dharma. Dharma of the soul is to give service. But unless our work is somehow or other related or connected with Krishna, it won't be successful, Srila Prabhupada says. He says, by Krishna seva, by service to Krishna, everything is complete. Just on my own, I was thinking, because now the whole world is confronted, with this horrific situation in Ukraine. There's a war that nobody wants. Nobody understands even why it's happening. And people are suffering, people are dying. And so, of course, it's natural that the whole world wants to help and like that. But if we take it in connection with what Prabhupada is teaching here in the scripture, that unless people of the world understand that they need to put God in the center, then again some other atrocity will happen, something else horrible will happen, because that's the nature of this world. It's only somehow or other, and luckily this movement is going on all over the world, which is amazing. We have thousands and thousands of devotees in Russia, in Ukraine. I remember many years ago, maybe 11, 12 years ago, I heard Radhanath Maharaj say, outside of India, he felt Ukraine was the most Krishna conscious country on the planet. And then, of course, when this war happened 1 year ago, I was in shock. Everybody was in shock. And I'm thinking, why, of all places, Ukraine? Of course, I don't know anything about politics, but I'm just thinking, in the material world is a place of suffering. But, and I'm coming to that in a moment, in Krishna consciousness, we see the positiveness in everything. So here is a horrible situation, but we place Krishna in the center. We help others to understand that they need to place Krishna in the center somehow or other. Then their life will become successful, because suffering will be there one way or another. It's inevitable. It's unavoidable. Anyhow, so in Krishna's service, everything is complete. Or as the verse in 62 says, Shraddha is confident, firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. And this is what is needed, this faith. So I found a nice verse, because our dear Gurudev, he would say, and it took me some time to understand this concept. Things take time. We have to be patient in Krishna consciousness too. He used to say, come and take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. It's a place where there is no fear, no lamentation, and no death. And I used to hear this and I'm thinking, well, it sounds nice. It sounds inviting. Yes, I want to become free of fear and not drown in lamentation. But no death? How is that possible? Everybody dies. I couldn't understand it. What does it mean to say, just come to the lotus feet of Krishna? It's a place where there is no fear, no lamentation, and not even death. And just this morning, quickly, as I'm trying to prepare, I found this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 10, Text 53, where Sukadeva Goswami speaks to King Parikshit. When Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was the king of this world, all bodily and mental suffering, disease, old age, bereavement, lamentation, distress, fear, and fatigue were completely absent. There was no death for those who did not want it. It's amazing, isn't it? Like, it's actually completely inconceivable. Even I'm reading it now again, I'm thinking, wow, it sounds wonderful. And we would like to be in an environment like that, isn't it? Because that's natural to the soul. We are like fish out of water. So when we come back to our spiritual environment, then naturally, that's what we are attracted to, naturally. We don't want to be in an atmosphere of fear and disease and fatigue and death, isn't it? It's natural. So Prabhupada says in the purport, which I thought to repeat, as a glorification of Mahaprabhu and encouragement to all of you wonderful Sankirtan devotees, Prabhupada says, a similar situation could be introduced immediately. A similar situation could be introduced immediately, even in this dreadful age of Kali. We're in the dreadful age of Kali. Don't think anything else. Kali is super active. We might be taking our time. No, should I chant Hare Krishna? No, I want to watch a movie today. It's just too much. It's too full on for me. We might be in a consciousness like that, maybe. I'm exaggerating, but Kali's not thinking like that. Ha ha ha. He's thinking, whoa, how I'm going to get in there and further destroy the 4 pillars of religion. And he's being very successful. Extremely successful. The last leg of religiosity is truthfulness. How much truth is going on out there? social media, television, newspapers. It's completely bewildering. It's completely bewildering. There used to be a time when, back in the day, occasionally on a Sunday, we'd get the Sunday newspaper. Because Prabhupada says you have to be a little bit up to date with what's happening in the world. We didn't have computers and Google and all of that stuff, internet. So sometimes we get the newspaper, or you might even watch news on the television, occasionally, because it was always the same old. Gets boring. Politics is extremely boring. However, there was a time, I feel, in my experience, you kind of could read it and you could sort of read through, oh yeah, they're kind of exaggerating, or this must be the truth, or you could get some idea of what's going on really. But nowadays, you don't know what is the truth, what is not the truth, who is really behind what and why, and who is manipulating whom, isn't it? It's like so... For me, that was the most shocking thing about this whole corona situation, actually. Like, I don't watch news. I don't. I'm not interested. I made that decision years ago. It's always the same old. Just different names, different places, right? Isn't it? Better to spend your time reading Bhagavatam. But when this corona pandemic happened, I was thinking, let me hear what's going on. And I followed it like all devotees. We had to, because it came like such a surprise, so all of a sudden, isn't it? All flights cancelled, your whole life turned upside down. So you had to follow. But you don't know anymore. Because those who are speaking up, they're eliminated, they're cancelled, deleted. Doctors and like that who are speaking, isn't it? And to me, it was like a devastating shock to see how much truth has been destroyed in human society. But anyway, a little bit off the topic here. So Prabhupada says a similar situation could be introduced immediately, even in this age of Kali. And he quotes, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila 17, text 22. Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. Nama Haite Haya Sava Jagata Nista. So Krishna descends in his holy name. He descends in his holy name. And Prabhupada says if we chant offenselessly, that's the tricky one, that's the tricky word. That's the trick word. If we chant offenselessly, Rama and Krishna are still present in this age. It's the devotees who hold the power to fight, to annihilate Kali, actually. At my initiation ceremony, my revered spiritual master explained to me that if you chant 16 rounds every day without fail, without offense, that's why at the time of initiation the Guru states the 10 offenses. So if you chant 16 rounds every day without fail, without committing these offenses, you're no longer in Kali Yuga. You're in Satya Yuga. Because sometimes this question comes up amongst devotees. Yes, in previous ages, we are responsible for our thoughts. Even if we had sinful thoughts, there will be a reaction. And in Kali Yuga, we are no longer responsible. We are responsible for our sinful action, but maybe not for our thoughts. That is true. That is true if you're... depending on your level, if you're just a non-devotee or whatever, more neophyte devotee, you're not held responsible for your thoughts. However, if you're taking initiation from a bona fide spiritual master, he instructs you in the 10 offenses and you carefully follow as it is, then you're no longer in Kali Yuga, you do become responsible even for your thoughts. And it makes sense, it's perfectly logical, because as we were explaining,